You wanted to know about my friend Mary and how I told her my brother was Christ? You see, people ask me, they don't ask me, rather I ask them the story of how they first came to Baba. Because even if it's not seeing him in the physical sense, your loving Baba, coming to him is really, in the real sense, meeting Baba, coming to Baba. So, and I tell myself, oh, I haven't got a story to tell them. I can't tell them how I met Baba or when I met Baba. Because ever since one remembers, ever since I remembered my first memory, you know, you can recall, oh, I remember doing this at age so-and-so. But ever, way back, as far back as I remember, I always knew Baba is who he is, and Baba is my brother, but Baba is God. And Baba was then already in Meherabad as Meher Baba. There's a difference of 25 years between Baba and me. And my mother said that the last thing Baba did was, when leaving home for good, and then his life, his missions, Meher Baba started. The last thing he did was rock my cradle. I was in the cradle, but in those days one could be in the cradle up to a year and a half. There's nice solid wooden cradles in those days. And Baba rocked my cradle and said how good fortunate I was, how fortunate I was, or how lucky I was. And mother loved Baba so much that although I was such a welcome child, being a girl after a line of boys, and I was so much wanted and so unexpected and so welcome, in spite of that, when I grew up and understood things, she would say, she told me that's what Baba said, and I was so happy. I'd make her say it again, what did he say, mother, what did he say, mother? And she'd say, yes, Mani, you are good fortuned, but not for me. You're not lucky for me, because you came and my Meherwan went. Because Baba left after I came, as it were. See? That's why I have no stories of Baba's childhood or anything to relate. My coming in soon after that, not long after that, Baba's going. And it used to make me happy, because my mother loved me very much. I loved her. But I knew by saying that it showed how much she loved Baba, Meherwan. And it used to make me very happy. Anyway, here I was in school, in the convent of Jesus and Mary, a Catholic school. I was educated there. All of us, all my mother's children, from Jamshed to myself, that's the first and the last, were born in Sassoon Hospital in Pune, David Sassoon Hospital. Then when I went to school, convent of Jesus and Mary, there the nuns used to teach us, along with the teachers also. There used to be the mothers, Mother Magdalene and Sister, all the names that they had, the nuns. And I had my best friend in my class, my best friend in school was a Christian, a Goanese Christian girl, a Catholic, whose name was Mary da Souza. And I admired her very much. She was my best friend because I found that she was able to do all the things that I couldn't do. She was so opposite to me, and she was serious. I was too light-hearted. She was very devoted to Christ, and I also was. I mean, I had a love for Christ, but she was in the virtuous sense, which I wasn't. For instance, she was so good, she would never tell a lie. And I found it very easy to tell a lie, and often did, especially if I was caught doing something or asked had I done something, and I would promptly say no. Even if I was caught red-handed doing something and said, Mani Rani, did you do this? I would say, no, miss, to my teacher, looking very innocent. And I'd find that Mary da Souza would be very brave, and she'd say, yes, miss, even if it meant that she had to take the punishment, she would take it. And I just couldn't believe it, and I just look at her and just melt. And she was very good, you know. She, if she was wet in the rain because she didn't have an umbrella, and she'd tell her mother, well, I wouldn't. I'd get all wet, and then to tell mother that I used an umbrella, but still I got wet. But she wouldn't do things like that. And so I would be following her at school break, we had what we call interval, about 15 minutes, 20 minutes after school started. And she would go into the school chapel. And I loved going there, so I'd go with her. And she would, Jennifer, and I would do the same. And then she would walk ahead of me to the altar where Christ, the cross was, and the altar cloth. But what I loved most were the statues of the saints. I mean, they were very personal friends of mine somehow. And as I walked past them, she didn't see, but I would touch them, caress the robe. And somehow I was so sure that they were looking down at me, and they nodded or smiled. They were very personal friends of mine. After doing all that, one day when this was over, we walked out of the chapel, and we were sitting on the chapel steps. And I was munching a toffee, coconut toffee that they sold at the school. It was brown, made of brown sugar. In fact, I was always munching something when there was time, you see. And I offered some to Mary, and she said, no, thank you. So I went on munching. My whole face here was, my mouth was all brown from the brown sugar, and I was enjoying it. And Mary was telling me about St. Teresa and stories about Jesus, and I loved it. In fact, on my birthdays, she always gave me a picture of one of the saints. And on her birthdays, I would give her a silly thing like a balloon or something silly. So this morning, while we were at interval, sitting on the steps of the chapel, talking, I munching my taffy, she telling me some story about Jesus Christ, it suddenly came into my head. All of a sudden I realized that here was Mary, my best friend, who loved Christ so much, who's so good that she deserves to know about Christ. And I hadn't told her that Christ is right here, back again, right here on earth. And what kind of a friend am I? All this went past in a flash. And then I saw that I'd tell her, and she'd get up and jump for joy and would immediately want me to take her to him. And everything was just in a sudden rush. It was like a tidal wave. And I, in the midst of what she was saying, and here was this taffy in my hand, I just turned around to her and said, Mary! And she looked surprised and said, yes. I said, do you know, my brother is Christ. And instead of jumping up and dancing and all that sort of thing that I had seen in my mind, she just looked so cold. She withdrew from me. And she suddenly was looking very dignified and cold, like she turned into ice. And she didn't scold me, she didn't say anything, and I couldn't believe it. I said to myself, what went wrong? At last I told her, and what's this? And then very slowly she got up and dusted her skirt, straightened her skirt, and just walked away. And I said, Mary, oh but Mary, Mary, nothing. She walked away, and I sat there, dumbfounded. The reaction was completely opposite of what I had imagined. I wondered, what's wrong? I mean, here I gave her the best news in the world to someone who I felt deserved it, and she couldn't take it. Well, for a month she didn't talk to me. She was so angry, I think she didn't talk to me for a month. So I would try and win back her smile. So I would hide behind the school block in the morning as she was going by and suddenly pop out so she couldn't avoid me. Well, one day it happened. She couldn't evade. Her eyes met mine, and she saw my smile, and she forgave. But I gave her a good talk afterwards. I said, you're most unchristian of you, not to talk with me for a whole month. I said, where is all your Christian forgiveness and all that sort of thing, even if you think I did something I shouldn't have done? But I never told her about Baba again. I learned my lesson. And you see, that made me think, as Baba said, it's the connection that matters. It's not how good you are or how bad you are that makes the difference with God. It is that you have linked yourself to him, that he has taken you to him, some connection, some maybe even God luck, if you like to call it, in some life. where you have linked up with him, and that is important. Because there would be times when we would say there was a Baba lover who loved Baba so devotedly. Oh, he's such a dear Baba lover. And once he wrote to Baba about his brother and said, oh Baba, my brother is so good, and he's this and he's that, and his qualities, even I don't possess some of his good qualities, Baba. And meaning to say, Baba, he deserves your love far more than I do. And he wanted Baba to touch his heart. And Baba wrote back, had me write back and say, but my connection is with you, not with him. But through my connection with you, he will benefit. And that was that. So Mary had to... In fact, I never had any contact with her after coming to Baba. Because when I came to Baba, I was a little over 13, so I had my 14th birthday with Baba. I was almost 14. When I came for good, I mean, because I used to come for all my holidays. All my holidays were spent with Baba from school. But just one thing I brought with me. You see how with Baba there can be no compromise. It's not that it's something big or something small. It's just that when you say you've surrendered, you have to give yourself all to him. And when I wanted all my life, ever since I remembering anything, was to come and be with Baba. And when I got that when I was just about 14, so I left home. Mother never prevented me from doing it, and but she felt at that time my brothers were with Baba, and Mother said, Mary, you've taken all my sons. Well, at least I have my daughter. So in a way, when I came to Baba, then Baba sort of gave back the sons, as it were, because Baba sent Jal back to look after Mother, and Behram married only because Baba wanted him to, and Baba even once used that as an example of obedience and how happy he was for Behram's obedience. And Adi, all the brothers were given back. In a way, I mean that's my way of seeing it, because that's how it happened. It was a sort of an exchange. But yes, so when I came, I only brought a few of my clothes with me, just for the time being, and I came to Baba just with my little trunk, my little box. But inside, I did bring one little attachment, got in the trunk, in the box with me. In my bag, it got in with me, and that was my skipping rope, jump rope as they call it in America. Somehow I thought it wouldn't matter, I just slipped that in. So that attachment was there. But now I didn't think about it, didn't think about telling Baba, and of course one would think Baba didn't know about it, but Baba had a beautiful way of bringing it out. And especially when you really liked something, and you happened to tell Baba how much you like such a thing, and Baba would egg you on, really, and you'd feel so wonderful. He'd make you feel wonderful about liking that thing, and so that soon you were talking more and more about it, and Baba would be sharing your joy, as it were. You'd feel at the time, but soon you'd find that Baba was teaching you to do without it. Years later, I read about this little joke, and I said, that's just like Baba. There's this landlady somewhere in London, and these boarders came. She let out her room to these boarders, and she was showing them around and saying, here's the jug of water, and here's this, and here's that, and well, she said, everything is here, and now, if there's anything else you need, just let me know, and I'll show you how to do without it. And that's how it is. So anyway, Baba somehow brought out the fact, we were talking of sports and things, and I was saying how at the convent there wasn't much sport, Baba, but there were things like relay races and other things, and skipping rope, Baba. And Baba said, skipping? You did skipping? I said, oh, Baba, I'm very good at it. Really, Baba? Wonderful. How good are you at it? Oh, I said, Baba, I can do it this way, and I can do it this way, and the back, and and the double twirl to the right, and all those names that we used to use in school. I could do them all, and I could do them longest. I could do so many hundreds at a stretch. And oh, Baba's look just got me talking more and more about how wonderful I was with the skipping rope and how much I loved it. And then I ended up with, I could even show you. And Baba said, oh, you have a skipping rope? Oh, yes, Baba. Where did you get it from? Then it suddenly dawned on me. I said, oh, I brought it. Oh, you brought it from home with you. You love skipping very much. And I said, yes, Baba. Suddenly I didn't, but I said, yes. But you love me very. Oh, Baba, yes. And you'd do anything for me. Oh, Baba, yes. But the way Baba would say it, it may sound odd the way I say it. But when Baba's look and gestures, it's different. It's the most beautiful thing. I said, oh, Baba, yes. You mean, Baba said, you'd even throw away your skipping rope if I told you? Of course, Baba. All right. So Baba called me over, caressed my cheeks, embraced me. All right, do it, said Baba. Oh, there was nothing to it. I took the skipping rope, went far away, and I still remember just throwing it out with all my might. And it's not the skipping rope, you understand? And it's not, when he takes away something from us, what we think it's something that we like which he's taken away. But he knows that it's not what's going to help you. He takes that away from you. Just like when a child is eating a berry from a bush and you know it's not the right thing and it's not good. And the child thinks, no, please let me eat it. I like it. So it wasn't that way, but just a little illustration of how something that you think is so little that it doesn't matter. But nothing is too little in Baba's love. Nothing is too little from Baba. As I said, I used to spend all my holidays with Baba, wherever he was, whether it was Nasik, whether it was Meherabad, either place, wherever Baba was, it would be my mother would bring me over, and when the holidays would begin, we'd come in the train, and Mother would stay there too, wherever Baba was. And then I would be with Baba, and then each time the separation, the time of partying, the going back to school, which I didn't want to do. I wanted to go on staying with Baba. And he would promise me that I had to study one more year at school. And if I came out first in class, then from then on, from next year I could be with him, that is with Mera, Khorshid, Naja, Masi, those that were there. And as I used to tell everybody in school, I was going to be a nun, that means go and live with Baba, with Mera and the others. And I realized that years later that really it was being nun in the truest and the deepest sense, that there couldn't be a monastery or a nunnery that could be so perfect in, it was so cloistered and so strict and yet so alive with Baba's love. It really was being a nun in the true sense. Anyway, so when I had to go back from Baba, back to school, because it was his order, obedience, we learned from the time we were beginning to think and talk that this is what Baba wanted us to do. This is Baba's order. There were the little orders when I was little, that I must study well. That was an order. I must listen to Mother. That was an order. I must not run away from school to come to Baba, but only come and call. That was an order. I must write to him once a week. That was an order. And things like that, many little things. Then as we grew up, there were what we were called the big orders. So there, when I had to go back to school, because it was time, school reopened, there was another term at school, and we would go back in the train, and there it was very, very painful to go away, go home again, away from Baba. And I would be weeping all the time in the train, weep, big tears rolling down, quietly just weeping, and quite oblivious to everybody else or their feelings or anything like that. I was too much engrossed in my own pain of going away from Baba. So at last one day, my mother, right in this crowded compartment, third-class compartment that we were, my mother turned around to me and said, in the Irani dialect, Persian dialect. Irani is the Persian dialect, Dari. That was the language we used to converse with each other. I don't know Persian, I know Dari. And she said to me in the Irani dialect, she said, Mani, all these people around us, they're not looking at you, they're looking at me. They think I'm your stepmother, or I've been cruel to you, or your mother-in-law or something. And suddenly I awoke to the fact of people being around me, and I looked at them, and I saw that not one of them was looking at me, but they were glaring at Mother, just ready to pounce on her. What has she done to that sweet child to make her cry so much? After that, I wiped my face. And so the moment we would get home, I had a funny little, a rather battered little tin bag, which was all my own. And the moment we went home, I would put that in a place, and I would tell Mother never to touch my bag, and she said I wouldn't touch it with a pole, your battered little thing. And I said, well, it's mine. And I would start right away, as soon as I got home, start preparing for going back the next holiday. I had it over a month's holiday, twice a year we would have, almost 2 months at Christmas time. So I would start preparing, and I would put things in that little tin bag. And with my pocket money, I would buy little things, a present. This is what I would give Mara, this is what I would give Naja, this is what I would give Pendu's father, Masa. I was very friendly with him. You see, when I was little, I could be both sides of the fence, you see. I could be with the men as much. When Baba was with the women, I could be there. When Baba was with the men, I could be there. And I used to have a lot of fun with Pendu's father, Masaji. Masa means uncle, which he was. He was Baba's uncle. Maternal uncle is Masaji, you see. So this is for him, and this is for this one, and this. And of course, for Baba. I was always looking out for the right thing to give to Baba. At last one day, as I was coming home from school, I saw a peddler with a hand cart selling little glazed shapes in crockery, little dolls and little cups and everything in glazed crockery, which was a new thing then, that beautiful shining surface. And I stood admiring it, wondering if there was something from that I could take for Baba. This is something I'd never seen. And then I found, right in the crowded shapes of things in that hand cart, I saw a pair of ducks in glazed pottery. You call it pottery, I think, glazed. And there were these cute little ducks with that yellow beak and shiny golden wings, and very cute shape, and with holes in their heads. And the holes were for salt, and one was for pepper. You see, it was a salt and pepper cellar? No.
Set.
Salt and pepper set, you see. And I thought, oh, that I'll take for Baba. And I was just short of 1 pice, but I persuaded the man that I go the same route every day to school, and if I ever saw him again, I'd give him that 1 pice, but I had to have that pair of ducks. So at last he gave me those ducks. I brought them and put them in my bag. Each evening as I'd come from school, I'd open the bag to see whether they were safely there. Yes, they were there. Every morning going to school, the last thing I'd look at those ducks. Yes, they're there in my little bag. At last the time came, the holidays came. I was going back to Baba, and when I was in the train going towards Mehrabad, I was quite a different child. Oh, everything was wonderful, everything was rosy, and everything was just such fun. So when I got there, I gave everybody their little presents, but first I presented the ducks to Baba. Baba looked at them, sort of, what's this? What's this? Ah, and then his face just glowed. He looked so radiant, and the love in his eyes, and he called me over and petted me and kissed me on the cheeks, and he said this was lovely. In fact, he made me feel as if that is just the thing he had been waiting for. He had everything called the 3 worlds and the universe and all that sort of thing. Yes, and God, he was God, and he had God realization, everything. But these ducks is just what he'd been waiting for all these years. He made me feel so good, and I was so happy that I found those ducks and I got them. And he called over and sent a message to the women mummy, to Mehra, that every day when Naja and she sent food over for Baba, in the tray, that this salt and pepper set had to be there, and they're not to forget to put this in. And of course afterwards I realized that how Baba makes one feel that one is giving something. It's not the thing, it's the love. Because I've witnessed that again and again in the latter years when I've been with Baba, and in more recent years, like somebody would send a ream of pages of poetry that he had written, the Baba Lava had written, and said he wrote it in a day, or he was inspired to write it in a week, or something like that. And Baba would have it read out, and Baba would say, so good, very nice, that is so good. And I'd groan inwardly and say, oh no, now that Baba says it's so good, and probably he'll have Eruch write and tell the man it's so good, and he'll have it printed, and oh, this stuff, this is junk, I mean this is not even poetry, and oh no. And so we had seen the surface, and that's why it was it was no good as poetry. There's no running away from the fact. But that is what was out with it, the surface. Baba was seeing through and through, deep down, and as only he could see. And he must have seen the love with which those verses were written, that how much he must have, those words must have been with him. So much of his heart must be in those words, just like mine was in those ducks before I even presented them to Baba. And this is, therefore Baba had seen that. But we couldn't. We just saw the words of those poems. And again, I mean, this poem or verses is just an illustration, and by way of an illustration. But actually, in so many ways we have seen Baba do. We have seen someone cook a little curry and bring some cooked curry for Baba. As they were coming to see Baba, they brought something for Baba's lunch. And Baba has praised, even before eating it, that telling us, look, she brought this. And what time did you get up this morning to cook it? Oh, well, Baba, I get up at that time. It was, look, she got up so early, and she did, and he'd call her over. And we would be, just look on, because we would know that this was nothing to give to Baba, particularly as Baba, as we knew, nobody else knew, we knew how much Baba had helped this person on the material sense. I'm not talking of the spiritual, that is unseen. His giving is so unseen and so vast that we can never even know it or fathom it. But even just in the material sense, we know that Baba had helped so much this person in need, and that here was just a little curry she had made for Baba and brought, and he was, but that's between Baba and her. It must have been done with so much love that he had seen that. We saw the outward, we saw the curry, we saw what had been done, and we couldn't, that it's just Baba can do that. We couldn't do it. To see a darshan in Guruprasad is something you really, really remember. It's really an experience. And we know that it couldn't be chance that the Maharani of Baroda had this palatial house which she offered to Baba for use, that Baba accepted and used it for our summer stay in Pune, that it was so perfectly built and planned that it happened to be called Guruprasad in any case, but that it was so perfectly built that it was perfect accommodation for Baba's work, for Baba's purpose, that the women could stay, and the women and the men could stay in the same bungalow, the same house, the same place, and yet so completely secluded from each other, and so easily done, because the women's wing could be separate, the men's wing could be separate, and in between was a huge hall where Baba could give darshan to so many, and yet Baba could go over to both sides. Baba's bedroom was so perfectly situated where the men could easily come in, and yet the women could be secluded from that. In every way, most perfectly adjustable place you can imagine, just as it made to order for our stay with Baba there and for his work. So there was one of the days when Baba was giving darshan that all could come. The doors were open. All could come and have his darshan, see him from such and such a time to such and such a time. And the hall would be full and overfull, so that the side rooms were also full, and people were peeping from there, looking over from there. The veranda was full. The approach road right from the gates to the palace, that was always teeming with coming and going and coming and going. And Baba looking so radiant, so fragile, and yet so strong at the same time. And he was at darshan time. It was, you can't describe it. Anyway, among those who had darshan, there were every conceivable kinds. I mean, there were the businessmen and the doctors and lawyers and cobblers and tailors and printers and Ranis and Rajas and just about everybody, and students and professors. So, as Baba would sit, there would be, for a time, they would allow the men to come and have darshan. So there would be a line of men coming one after another, each one approaching Baba and receiving from Baba either a caress or a pat on the back or a question of concern, how are you, or what are you doing now, or is your job, just each one flowing like a river flowed right past Baba. After a while, it would be the women. Now, among the men that day, one had come who was seeing Baba for the first time. He was a tailor. And he saw Baba, and he, as you say, fell for him. Anyway, he saw Baba, and after the darshan was over, he came round to the men's side and approached Eruch and said, I'm a tailor. And Eruch said, yes, I know. So-and-so told me you're one of the best in Pune. I said, oh, it's just His grace. But all I want to know is, can I stitch something for the God-man? Can I do something for Baba? And he said, well, yes, why not? He said, I have stitched so many garments for so many, and now that I can stitch something for God Himself and for His main form. He was really just, he was bowled over. And Eruch said, yes, why not? Baba would be happy. But shall we tell you, we'll give you the material? No, nothing. I know the size, I've seen him. I know the color, I'll get the material, I'll do everything. I just want permission. And Eruch said, of course, you express your love in your own way. Wonderful, Baba won't mind at all. In fact, he'll accept happily. So it's love that Baba wants and all that sort of thing. So he went to it. And he sat and immediately got to work and stitched day and night, so that in 2 days he brought the coat over. The coat was sent over, and Baba put it on. And Baba put it on. Poor Baba. I mean, it was so big for him that the sleeves were coming way beyond where his fingers ended. His shoulder was down here, his pockets were somewhere near his knees, and the coat was up to his knees, and Baba had such a twinkle in his eyes. He was flapping his hands where the sleeves overhanging, like you've seen pictures of Dopey in the Seven Dwarfs doing that, There was Baba flapping his hand and with a twinkle in his eyes and sort of smiling, a helpless smile, sort of, look what I have to do for love's sake. Look what I have to do for my lovers. And we couldn't believe it. It was very funny at the same time. And we said, but what happened? So I went over and told Eruch. He said, look what he's done. When Baba came over to the men's side, and he was showing to the men, and Eruch kept shaking his head. He said, I can't understand it. He's a very good tailor. Everybody says so. He's one of the best, and I can't. And so, anyway, afterwards Baba removed the coat, and he folded it. Eruch folded it and kept it and called the man. And the man, he said, did he try it on? Did it fit? And as Eruch was about to shake his head, the man said, you mean it's too snug for him? I thought so. I was afraid it might be snug. Eruch said, snug? And then he told him. The tailor got another opportunity to see Baba. And he was, Baba said, Baba was very happy. He was not to worry. And, as Baba alone can do. After seeing Baba the second time, after coming from Baba's presence a minute, he came back and he said to Eruch, he said, oh, I don't know what happened. And Eruch said, but what happened? That's what we want to know. He said, when I first saw Baba that first time, Baba looked so big. He was so big that when I made this coat, I was afraid it might be rather on the snug side. But then when he saw Baba again, and he said, I'll correct it. And he corrected the coat and sent it back. Because Baba is who he is, that we could continue when we had spent our whole life with him, ever since we were teenagers, from school, and every moment of our life was under his direct direction, not only guidance but direction, and that when he dropped his form we could continue. But it's only Baba can do that. And because his presence is there, because, as he said, he is, more literally than I mean in the God sense. I mean Baba is here. There's no doubt about that. It is that we don't see him. It is that his work with his form, with his gross form, physical form was over, and because he really used his form very, very hard. He drove his body hard for his work. And his work means what? For us. Never, never for himself. And that is why his work always came first. He would put his work above everything. And we have seen him use his body for his work, and driving it so hard. The fasts, the number of fasts that Baba's kept. I still remember when we were in Quetta, for instance, very, very cold there, oh, tremendously cold. And we were there during the bus tour. Quetta is way up in the north. It's now, I think, Pakistan. And Baba one morning, where we were housed, he took us out when we came out in the morning from our rooms. And Baba took us to show where Chatti Baba, the mast, was. And right in the center of the open grounds, pouring cold water over his head. Even the sight of it just froze me. It was so cold. So at that time, Baba fasted, and on a fast, and the only thing he would have is something he was not at all fond of. In fact, he never cared for fruits, or raw vegetables or fruits. So here, and yet he fasted on fruit. And he would like this nice, spicy, hot curry or hot dal and rice. And there, we would be eating it. Can you imagine? We only ate it, we couldn't enjoy it. But here was Baba having peach, beautiful peaches, oh, the fruits of Quetta. But it was not the thing, it was not a food, it was not what Baba liked in any case. So it was so cold, there would be a thin skin of ice over it, little, not a solid ice, like frost. And Mera would warm the peach over some lighted coals, just to make it warm enough for Baba to eat, to peel it, to cut it. So that is Baba. You want me to repeat the little story about the sheep? It illustrates how, in simple, individual ways, Baba made each one realize that he is with us. Because after Baba dropped his body, when we came back from Pune, from the Darshan in Guruprasad in 1969, when we came back, it seemed the first time we had any little time to be conscious of our own feelings, of being conscious of how much we were missing his physical presence. And when we were here, after we had come back, and it's like a flood of memories had come up all at once. Because in Maharaja, there is nothing here that Baba has not either touched or used, or it is not associated very personally with Baba. And so there was much to keep us engrossed in bringing up his presence with so many memories. It was oh, this is the gramophone. Remember how Baba sat here and we played those records just such a short while before he dropped his form. Remember this, remember that. And, keep telling oneself all the time this was happening. And after we came here, Eruch told me, because Eruch had made it very clear from the first, that we had to continue to do what we know Baba would want. That there was no difference in that this was to be a continuation, and it was a continuation, and that this was no time to start thinking of ourselves. No time to begin doing such a thing. We had to continue to do what we had always done, which was to think of Baba, to do what he would want, no matter how much we didn't like it or found it difficult. That was of no matter. So after we had come here, he said, a few days later, he said, remember, you have that document, that particular document. Well, I want it. I have to send it to Adi, and this has to be done, that has to be done. So that document Baba kept with you, you bring it over. I said, right, yes, I'll bring it over. And promptly forgot about it. So all day I was there. I didn't even come over this side. Suddenly, in the evening, when it was dusk, I suddenly hit my forehead and said, that document that Eruch wanted, that urgent paper, I forgot all about it. So I'll go and give it now. I opened the cupboard, I got out the document, and visibility was so weak that lanterns were being lit. It was time now for lanterns to be lit, but I came over and I said it'll be in time to give it to him before it's really dark. So as I came over to the men's side, and as I was walking towards Eruch's room, I found that Eruch was already at the faucet, the tap that's outside of his room. He was washing his face. So I stood there, I said, Eruch, I brought that document. He didn't say anything. He finished washing his face. He got up, he dried his face with a towel that's hanging outside of his room. And instead of then walking towards his room to go inside his room, he turned the other direction and walked away from the tap, past the mango tree, the musk mango tree that's outside, and straight towards the field, which is beyond. I was puzzled. I said, but Eruch, I brought the document. All he said was, come. So I followed him, and there he stood, at the edge, at the border of the field. This vast expanse of field before us, and it was very dusky. You could barely see what was beyond where we were standing. And I said, what is it, Eruch? He said, can you hear? And in that silence and darkness, I strained my ears. And yes, very clearly, I could hear from a distance, in the field, I heard, ba, 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 ba. And it felt very nice. I said, yes, Eruch, I hear. Can you see? And I looked, and I could see, and I knew that there was an enclosure some farmer had made out of the branches of this thorny tree that we have, babul. They do that from time to time. They make an enclosure in somebody's field to house their sheep for the night, so that they're safe from wild animals or anything. So I knew that is what it was, and that's why I heard the sheep calling. He said, can you see? Well, there were some white sheep among the mainly black ones, so I could see the movement, I could see the white, and I knew the sheep were restless. They were going around in that enclosure, confused, restless, calling out, ba, ba. And I said, yes, I can see them stirring. He said, no, to the left. Look to the left. To the left, I could see nothing. And then suddenly I made out that there was a darker form, darker than the darkness there was, a form that looked like a rock. It was a rock. And I said, how did that big rock get into the middle of the field? And as I looked for a while, then I realized it was a form of a person.